Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, January 23rd, and today the council is meeting to take up state legislative priorities in session, and there is a hard stop at 1:30 because there is another committee that is meeting at 1:30. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. McCartney Green and Ms. Wellens.
Thank you, Council President. And welcome to our first state legislative session that started at January 11th, and this is our first session reviewing both state and a preview into local bills that we discussed previously as well. Here with me today, obviously, is Ms. Christine Wellens, our senior legislative attorney, along with Melanie Wegner and Kathleen and Leslie, and I think I see Sarah at the end as well. And so, as I mentioned, today the purpose of our meeting is to discuss, to receive updates from OIR about the governor's FY24 budget. There was an addendum to the packet that was included that has a chart that was prepared by OIR to discuss that. Just wanted to give Ms. Wegner an opportunity to jump in and to discuss that with you.
Good afternoon. So the new administration introduced a budget that's amended from the former governor's administration. That is interesting. It always is interesting, and so we have some preliminary numbers for you. I marked it draft because I'm working off a number of documents that of which some are conflicting, so note the draft, please. But it looks like on the operating side, there's about, on the state aid side, there's about a 10.5% across the board increase. The dominating, state aid there is public K through 12 education, and that's about a $96 million increase. That's a much stronger increase than last year. That's about 11%. Last year was about a 4.4% year over year. So that's some good news, and I think a lot of confirmation on some of the numbers I have are probably going to come on Wednesday when the Department of Legislative Services does their big fiscal overview, and they've got a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of the things that are not going to be necessarily so obvious from the documents that I'm working from. On the capital budget side, I should note that a lot of what you see these shaded boxes, and that's the governor bringing in, actually appropriating a lot of the pre-authorizations that we did anticipate. And the governor only funded in his budget about half of the pre-authorizations for fiscal year 24 that the legislature authorized. So there's some work to be done on that, but I think you can see that a lot of the county's key big pieces are there. Other than that, there's not a whole lot there, but there's a whole lot of opportunity. Okay, so there's an $800 million cash balance. There was $500 million set aside just for transportation capital. That's not programmed yet. And $500 million for the blueprint. I believe that is likely programmed here. And then the legislature would set aside, there's about $100 million set aside for the legislature to bring some more money in. So this is an unfolding story, so we'll see what happens as time moves on, and we'll keep in touch with you on that. I should also note that something that's not actually listed in the numbers, but it's in the footnote, is from our 2023 session priorities document, there's $10 million. We are told that there will be $10 million there for bus rapid transit. So.
And I appreciate on page 21, as you were referencing in the packet, the breakdown, the preliminary breakdown on local aid, and that's in this budget. So thank you for that. Ms. McCartney Green.
Thank you, Council President. So we're moving on to the local bills for our discussion today, and that's on page 1 of your packet. There's a chart that's prepared by council staff, and so we'll jump right into MC 123. That's the school bus monitoring camera bill that the council previously discussed at the December 6th state legislation meeting. At the time, the council decided to hold on taking a position on the bill because needed more information about the impact of the bill, the earmark funds, and how would that be deferred to the state. Well, since then, the Delegation Housing Committee on Land Use, Transportation, and Public Safety held its meeting and made substantive changes to the bill, including striking the entire language and making some amendments that makes the bill more statewide. I know OIR's packet has a little bit more details on that, and Ms. Wegner can also fill you in the details there too.
Hi, I'm Sarah Morningstar with Intergovernmental Relations. So MC 123, as you all approved it, has been completely changed and amended. The bill now will change state law, or would recommend changing state law having to deal with multi-lane, non-median highways. When there's a stopped bus in the other direction, all people who continue to go by would get a warning instead of getting a $250 citation. And the state would also be required to do a study to recommend of high citation areas to recommend changes to improve safety. So the bill has really changed very much. It was approved unanimously by the delegation on Friday morning and would then go to Environment and Transportation Standing Committee. The county executive, we spoke with him about it this morning, and at this point we were going to see how the bill is discussed in E&T and just stay where we are at this point. But right now the county is opposed to the bill as it was originally introduced, though as I say it is now amended.
Thank you for that update. The bill has changed quite substantively since last we spoke. And before I talk about the bill, I just want to acknowledge Delegate Joe Vogel. Thank you for joining us, Delegate. And I really appreciate Delegates Moon and Love working together, trying to figure out how to reconcile one of, according to me, and many. What time of day is it? I don't know. Don't quote myself. Thank you. The biggest problem with the current law was the issue of people getting tickets going the opposite direction and not being able to see the bus that has caused the infraction. And I appreciate that they have worked together to change that state law. And I think that this is a much better outcome, and also recognizing, if the information I have is correct, that the repeat rate is very low once someone gets that $250 ticket. And so if they get a $250, if they get what is not a fine, it's a warning that it'll probably prevent them from that $250. So I am in support of this newly revised piece of legislation. Councilmember Lutke.
Thank you, and certainly appreciating that it's undergone some substantial revision. But I have great concerns about the fact that we would be treating this differently than we would speed cameras, for example. You don't get a warning from a speed camera, you get a ticket. And the law hasn't changed, so the fact that there were these violations where cars were coming in opposite direction, that is the law. You do need to still stop, even if it's multi-lane roadway. You know, we don't, with other things in transportation enforcement that are automated, like a camera system for speed, give them the ability to say, oh, geez, I didn't know that was the law. Or, oops, I didn't see the speed camera, right? And when we're talking about children and we're talking about safety, and we've had significant challenges with this, significant, pre-pandemic, let alone post-pandemic, where people kind of got out of the habit of what do I do with a school bus and how does this work, where people are passing buses on a regular basis. I've watched it myself with my own kids. One of my kids is in a commercial that the state did as a public service announcement to get people to better understand when you have to stop for school buses and what the consequences of that are. They ran at all the MVA locations around the state to help educate our drivers. And yet we still have problems. So I don't really think that the appropriate course is to reduce things and to make it, give somebody a pass. I think we need to leave it alone. And you don't get a pass, you get a ticket. Thank you.
Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. I had a quick question about this bill, should it pass. I don't know what has been used in the past. If we are going to start taking this money that from the assessed fines and taking it would go to the state now for this.
No. As amended, that piece was pulled out.
Okay, so,
The bill is now addressing the, changing the state law with regard to the multi-lane roads with no median and turning it into a warning, and then requiring MDOT to do additional study. I also, I'm sorry, for the first offense. I also have Chris Tippery here, who runs the county's automated traffic enforcement, if that
Sure.
would help.
Sir, if you want to come down.
Good morning. Chris Jeffrey from the Montgomery County Police Automated Traffic Enforcement Unit.
So just, perhaps speak to how it's done now with the lanes.
Currently, opposing traffic is required to stop on undivided roadways. So essentially, there's some roadways that are multi-lane coming the opposite direction, and it's those vehicles that are on the extreme side of the roadway that are sometimes having trouble seeing it. The bill as amended raises a couple concerns for us as far as enforcement, because the contractor ultimately clears the initial citation and then sends it to my approvers for ultimate final approval for the citation. The issue being is there's several different contractors that are awarded through the RFP process through different jurisdictions. So essentially, if you got a warning in Hagerstown on Monday, you could also get a warning in Montgomery County by a different program, Prince George's County by a different program, and it also goes to the registered owner of the vehicle. So if you are the registered owner of your child's vehicle, you either get the warning or you get the citation. So there's a lot of questions as to how we would implement that program, because we would have to require the contractors to develop the technology to issue the warning first, and their competitors. We would be requiring them to share data with other companies, and that's not likely to happen.
well, my question focused on the revenue that would be assessed. Is that no longer part of this legislation? Any
No.
violations that, okay, all right, thank you.
If I could just jump in there real quick. So the warning per jurisdiction, could it be written that way? That a driver, and I will say a reckless driver who would be getting multiple citations in multiple jurisdictions on the same day, but if someone were to operate their vehicle in that way, could the legislation just simply say one pass per jurisdiction? Is that something that would alleviate your concern?
I think that the problem would still be between companies. We wouldn't know if Company A in Prince George's County does not talk to Company B. We would never know that they were issued that warning throughout the state. So it would be, you would get a warning in Prince George's for passing a school bus, which you would hope they wouldn't do it again, but then you would essentially get another warning in Montgomery County for doing the same thing.
Okay. And then one last clarifying question. You mentioned the difference between owner and operator of the vehicle, but don't other automated enforcement mechanisms operate the same way?
Yes, and
Okay.
we do. It's a TOL, a transfer of liability, that we would assess to a.
So this would be no different than the speed
Right,
cameras
we
or
would-
red light cameras?
right, yeah.
Very good. Councilmember Friedson.
Appreciate that. I'm glad you raised the point. I would note that you wouldn't actually receive the warning. This isn't an officer who comes to your window who presents the warning where you sign it to confirm your receipt.
Correct.
This is something that gets processed through an external facility and mailed to your address, presumably in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks, I would guess. I could be wrong on,
Within 14 days, we have to send out the violation.
it has to be sent. So you receive
Yeah.
it within 2 to 3,
Yeah.
most likely within 2 to 3 weeks. So you wouldn't know you received, presumably you might not know if the intention of the bill is accurate, that you weren't even aware that you crossed a school bus because of it. I'm concerned personally. I think that raises some, administrative concerns. But I do think while it is dramatically better than the concerns that we raised before, and I'm not in total opposition of the bill because the revenue was very concerning, it is a Band-Aid solution to a problem. We should make a decision of whether or not we think that going forward on the other side of a street that doesn't have a median should be legal or illegal. And we should be very clear to residents and to bus drivers and to students of what they should expect on certain roadways. And I just have a little bit of concern here that we're sending mixed messages to say, hey, you really shouldn't do this. But if you do it, the first one's okay, because the first one, if we're saying that this is a safety issue for children, the first one where someone's getting a warning could be the one where a child dies. And to me, that is just, from a public policy standpoint, a concerning dynamic here. So at the very least, I would suggest that we have no position on this and work it out. I mean, I do think there are reasonable points of view on these multi-lane roads of whether or not it is fair or reasonable for someone to understand that they're supposed to stop if they, can't see what they're supposed to stop for. But I think that is a state policy issue that should be determined, and we should be absolutely clear, this is when you must stop, this is when you may proceed, and we shouldn't have mixed messages that are being sent to it. So with that, I don't know that we have to oppose, because I think we should reflect the fact that the delegates have taken tremendous steps to try to address our concerns, but I would be uncomfortable supporting it due to that issue, and would rather see the state look into this public policy question from a public safety standpoint of whether or not the law should be, how the law should reflect where and when drivers should be required to stop.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have similar concerns that my kids take the bus every day. I want everyone to stop. I think every parent, every community member wants that, and I think the sponsors of the bill at the state level want that. And we just need to be very clear that if you break the law, because this bill doesn't change the law, it still says you have broken the law when you cross on the other side of a divider. It just says we're going to give you a warning. And to Councilmember Fried's point, not a real-time warning. A delayed warning that may or may not get to you within 2 to 3 weeks. So I think the public policy is clear, actually, that it is against the law, and we do not want to encourage in any way someone passing a school bus on the side of a non-divided road or state highway. So if that's the policy, then the penalty should be the penalty. And administrative concerns, I think, add additional weight to that argument, but I think the core of it is, what are we trying to stop? And we're trying to stop people from, and it is a big deterrent. Part of the reason we're taking this up is because people have said, hey, this is a really expensive ticket. And it's a really expensive ticket because our children's lives are invaluable. So I think it's actually, doing what we wanted to do as far as that's concerned, as far as the disincentive from taking these actions. So I think we should, I do also appreciate the delegates' concern on the money, but I'm less concerned about the money as I am. I think we want the public policy goal achieved, and I think we all want that. So I don't think we should support it. So I guess I'd be fine with no position, but I'd want to say in the no position why it's no position, but I'd be comfortable not supporting it as well. So I just think we need to send a strong message here. I appreciate, and there can always be more study of, who are the repeat, it was mentioned by Council President who the repeat offenders are or aren't. That's a low number. Where these are happening, state road versus, most of these roads that are going to have this issue are going to be state roads, but, versus a county road. But I think we can always look at data and maybe refine, but at this point, I think this isn't a good solution to the problem. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
I oppose this bill. Straightforward, simple. This is a policy decision. We live in a country, in a county, and in a country that is very car-centric. we have a culture of moving fast, 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 go, 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 without thinking that our actions have consequences, without thinking that children could be crossing the street out in the sun because they're about to miss the bus. They're not thinking if there's a lane between a highway. They're just thinking, I gotta get on the bus right away. And what we're doing with this piece of legislation is making it easier for a driver to say, oops, I messed up, I didn't know the bus was there. Well, you being messed up, missing that the bus was there, could kill a child. So I don't think this is a place where we should be, oh, maybe we should not speak, maybe we should just, no. If you're really thinking that we need to have a community that is connected and that is safe for people to walk, bike, roll, and drive, then you need to make sure that we have policies and consequences with money so people understand that, you know, if there's a law, you need to apply that law. You don't get to say, oops, I missed that. It just creates more confusion. So I will say no. Thank you.
Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much. My thoughts are similar. I too believe we should oppose this. The idea being that a child sometimes crosses the road to get to the bus, and the bus stops. And I understand that there's times that the bus driver doesn't put the arm out in time and whatnot, so there has to be some thought about that. But if a child is crossing the road, then we have to make certain that it is as safe as possible. And the idea for automated bus traffic tickets was that there would be diminishing dollars, that we wouldn't collect a dime on this. It would be a wonderful day if everyone stopped and we didn't get one dime out of this. But the reality is that people do not stop. I can tell you when they first came out with this type of legislation, the next day I was driving to the county council building, and a person, it's near an elementary school, it's where I had stopped, a person went flying past and out, going the opposite direction of a school bus. And my heart was in my mouth. Thank God nobody was hurt, but it was only by the luck that no one was hurt. I don't know why we would say that this is not, I understand that $250 is a lot of money, but I think it started at $125, and that wasn't enough. I believe that we should say that we are not going to support this legislation. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
I appreciate the comments of colleagues, and I appreciate the comments from our colleague in the executive branch. That bears worth further digging into the issue of the three companies and the competition, which I know we've talked about before, but I think we need to revisit at some point in the very near future. And I agree with opposition for all the reasons stated. Just yesterday morning this morning I was driving. There was a bus stopped. The stop sign wasn't out. I stopped anyways because we just all have to get it in that culture. And while I agree with Council Friedson completely that we need to clarify these laws moving forward so that it is more clear for drivers in the long run, the default, especially now, should be focused on safety.
Thank you. So let me just reiterate or even clarify my comments from the beginning. I see this bill trying to do two different things. On one hand, there is the issue of not issuing tickets to cars that are 5, 6, even 7 lanes away in the opposite direction. Some drivers not even seeing the bus that is stopped. And those are complaints that I and the delegates have received. I think those are honest, legitimate complaints. But what this bill then does is couple that with a free pass for those who pass a bus in illegitimate manner that does real harm. Because quite frankly, there should be no kids crossing a 6 or 8 lane state highway to catch the bus. That is something that MCPS, if it exists, needs to change immediately. So I would support the opposite lane problem, but as colleagues have noted, giving a free pass that could result in even one death is not a good policy. So I'm hearing multiple things from colleagues. Some want to hold, some want to reject. I guess I'll just take the poll. All those who want to, well, do you have a suggestion?
Well, I was just saying, we already are opposing the bill, so we'd be changing.
Well, there's people have commented differently from the dais, so I just want to get a sense of what people are saying. Those who oppose the bill as rewritten, Councilmember Mink.
I'm sorry, before we can, I just want to make sure it's clear that we held the bill and wasn't in opposition.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify, does the bill, one of the goals of the bill is also requiring SHOT to study problem areas and recommend those physical improvements, correct? That's still a part of the bill? I mean, that feels like a worthwhile, that seems like something we certainly want to encourage. So if there's a way we can have a bill that does that without lowering the penalties for folks who are endangering our kids, then that would be ideal to me.
So given there are multiple facets of this bill that I think we all find worthy, I would suggest that we hold this bill, have this communicated to our legislators, and quite possibly they could refine it one more time during this session or bring it back need be. Is there any objection to a hold?
I know you're looking at me. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with holding, but I will say that the ability to do that study doesn't need to be legislated. They could just do the study. So,
But will it?
well, that's another question, right? But
I think the message is that there are worthy aspects of this bill, that possibly they decouple it, and we take those initiatives in different ways, right? Okay. Not hearing an objection. Councilmember Jawanda?
Not an objection, but just a clarifying point. You know, I think we all support a study, that piece, but I would not support the other part, which I think is the driver of the bill. I think it's the reason it was introduced primarily. You know, but we can. I'm fine if we take a hold. When is it coming up to go into the next
So the next
step?
stop for this piece of legislation will be the Senate delegation.
Okay.
So, we can certainly convey this, I think the consensus of this discussion, which is good things and one good thing, other things not so good. I will tell you the county executive decided he had opposed the bill. He decided this morning he would not take a position. That was it was like complicated. So it's not over. And by the way, also the county is required to continue to do reporting annually about this program. And I think that this conversation about this program is going to continue for a number more years going forward.
Including in the Public Safety and Education Committee when we schedule that. So,
yes.
But all right, so I'm fine holding with that knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I will remind my colleagues that we have a hard stop at 1:30 because there's another committee meeting. So here we go. Item number 2, Ms. McCartney
We'll
Green.
roll right into item number 2. So MCPG 10623, council previously discussed the bill as well. It's a local bill and decided not to take a position. Just a reminder, the bill was to prohibit or enacting or enforcing any local law that would require creation of a new off-street parking for residential development located within 0.25-mile radius of existing or planned Metro Line or Purple Line station. Bill also went to a House Delegation Committee, and there were some amendments there that OIR can also share with the council.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, council members. There were some amendments discussed throughout the committee process, but the full delegation adopted it clean on Friday. So the bill that we discussed with you last time, which is, as Ms. McCarthy Green indicated, very simple, prohibits the Montgomery County District Council from enacting a local law that mandates any kind of off-street parking in residential areas within a quarter mile of the Purple Line or the Metro Line. It prohibits that kind of law. The county executive had initially opposed the bill. We also talked with him again this morning, and he no longer opposes the bill. He's not taking a position. As the bill has moved forward through discussion of the delegation, I think from the county executive's position, I think he would rather, and he spoke to the sponsor about this, had discussions about actually caps on off-street parking. But this, by simply prohibiting the district council from requiring off-street parking, I don't think he doesn't see it as particularly meaningful at this stage. So he's not taking a position for or against. As Mel indicated with the prior bill,
for your purposes, the decision would be this bill moves to the Senate, the House delegation Senate side, and would you want to take a position at that stage? So.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a robust discussion about this item, which I very much appreciate. I just wanted to note for colleagues, there was kind of two views here. One was what seemed to be strong support for the general idea with our transit focus and our environmental priorities, that we reduce the need for parking, which is what most land use decisions that we've been making for the last 25 years have been centered around. At the same time, there was understandable concern about local zoning authority, which is really at the core of what the county council does and what the district council is responsible for from a state standpoint. I still support this issue very strongly. I'm fairly agnostic in terms of where it is done, although I'm certainly sensitive to the preemption concerns and the slippery slope argument of what does this mean for our other authorities. So really appreciate Delegate Moon for putting this forward and raising this issue. I wanted to note that Councilmember Mink and I are working on a local bill to address this specific issue and are hopeful to move that forward for consideration by the full body in relative short order once we work out some of the kinks. And so there's a strong commitment to do this. I'm looking forward to moving that forward and working with her on that. I very much hope we won't oppose this bill, to be very clear, because I think our public policy priority is there. If there are concerns about the preemption issue, which I'm certainly sensitive to, I think at the very least taking no position, but noting that there is support for the broader policy goal, I think would be helpful. And so just wanted to note that for colleagues, and appreciate the various issues here and look forward to either way addressing this at the local level, and appreciate Councilmember Mink for her partnership and working together on this.
Let's hear from Councilmember Mink.
I agree. Yeah, so I'm also happy if this moves forward at the state level. I again personally I strongly support this issue, and I'm fine with them moving that there. Again, as Vice President Friedson said, sensitive to the concerns about jurisdictional issues. That's totally understandable. Personally fine with it moving at the state level, but if we want to together move forward with a no position and indicating our support in this issue area, which is what I think what our discussion sounded like the last time we considered this bill. I think that would be great. And again, Vice President Friedson and I are getting the pieces in place to be ready to move quickly with a county level bill if this does not pass at the state level. And again, I appreciate Delegate Moon's work on this important issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Just start by saying what I said when we took this up last time. I'm supportive of the policy. I have a bill pending that would do this. It would reduce parking within, Bill 5220 that would reduce parking. I'm sorry, not 5220, ZTA. I had a ZTA that would have reduced parking within these similar areas. I have strong concerns about the preemption. Also, that not every, as this bill says, present or planned site has the same, situation going on. And I think that means that we need some level of flexibility or transition time and, to handle that. While I think the majority here, and I include myself in it, agree with this as a policy and where we need to go, I think it's much better handled at the local level. I'd be very interested. I know I heard that you all were working on that bill and would love to be a part of that and take it up in our committee here. But I am concerned that this ties our hands a little bit, so at a minimum, I would want to see if there's a way to work with the sponsors to allow for some local flexibility. So I don't know if there is, because this is just the way I read it. It's just a flat-out prohibition. Maybe it's a time limit a phasing in or something, you know, but things that we could consider at the local level, recognizing that not every part of our county is exactly the same, and what you can do in one place, you might not be able to do in another as quickly, even though if we want to get there eventually. So, I wouldn't want to oppose it either, but I would say, you know, no position, but with a statement that I think maintaining some level of local flexibility or control is important. If there's a way to, I'm looking at our folks here, I don't know if there's a way to do that, but.
We would certainly convey that.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that might be the way to go. I think it's an important policy. I think it's best done at the local level, but I wouldn't want to say we would be totally prohibited just because we are very different, and we want to look at these, I think, at our level. So,
Right. Assuming there's general agreement that.
yeah, I don't know if there's agreement on
right,
that, but that's what I would propose.
Say that as a caveat.
Councilmember Sales.
I totally agree. I was going to mention that, you know, I was concerned about the preemption, but if there is a local bill, I too am interested in looking at this and how we could have that flexibility at the local level on a project by project basis. I mean, this land is prioritized for developers because it's in close proximity to our metro stations. And if we truly want to maximize the opportunity for renters and owners to take advantage of the metro that's going to be so conveniently located, I want to make sure that we're working that into the project plan before it actually gets approved. And so whatever we can do to maintain that flexibility here and protect home rule would be appreciated. Thank you.
Councilmember Balcom.
Thanks. I just want to agree with my colleagues, and I just want to say that it just sends a wrong message for us to support a bill that takes away our authority. So I'm looking forward to seeing the bill from Councilmember Mink and Friedson, but I just can't imagine supporting a bill that takes away our authority. Thank you.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
I'm going to echo the words of Councilmember Balcom and Councilmember Wiljawondo. I think it's a bad precedent to give up our authority, and knowing how different this county is based on land use, coming from parking planning, I can spend hours telling you how Long Branch and Bethesda are completely different. And I love the sentiment. I agree with it, but it's we just don't give up our power like that, not because we are selfish, but because we know better what's happening in our local communities based on land use. So hopefully you can perhaps talk about the transition that Councilmember Wiljawondo mentioned. That would be a good thing. Otherwise, just I look forward to seeing the ZTA from Councilmember Wiljawondo and what Fritzen and Mink are working on. Maybe it can be just one bill that we can combine forces. I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm getting the sense that a number of colleagues are sympathetic to the policy, but are concerned about the preemption. And so for that reason, I think there's a whole pending legislation that is being worked on, right, which has been shared publicly here.
Council
right?
President, so before it was no position was taken, and so would that be changing from no position to?
No position, right, we know what the goals. And I will just say, for the record, I actually have no concern over preemption, because in my opinion, good policy is good policy. And it doesn't matter which level of government proposes it, as long as it gets us to where we need to go. But given that there is policy here at the council that is being drafted, I support the local policy when it is unveiled in due time. Councilmember Katz.
The legislation that Council Vice President and Councilmember Mink are doing, would this state law allow for what you're doing?
No. It would probably render it unnecessary.
I think we would have to look at how the final language of the state bill turns out, which it's probably going to undergo some I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not confident that it's going to pass at all. But maybe it will. But I would imagine that if it does, it's going to go through some changes. Maybe there would want to be something that we layer on top of it, but to make it more stringent in some ways. But I don't think that we would be able to, make it less stringent, obviously.
So the question, it begged the question, why are we saying go ahead and we could support this if we're saying that we want to do something different, or we want to do it ourselves? I don't understand, to the others' points, I don't understand why we give up authority. Even if this is the right thing to do, we should do the right thing, so that's right.
Thank you for that, and I think the important message to convey to the delegation is that 2 council members are working on it, and there is sympathetic support from many, many more.
And if I would just ask, could we also convey that we look into some phasing or some local authority if they do move forward? If that could be included in the sentiment, if folks are okay with that.
Or if they want to withdraw the bill and let us.
Yeah. That is always their prerogative, and Delegate Vogel as well will share all those sentiments. Yes. Okay, it is 1:11. We got 4 more items to go in 19 minutes.
We'll be quick. Consistent with our priorities of public safety, House Bill 70, Senate Bill, cross-file Senate Bill 16, would require the Department of Transportation to recommend and implement certain design elements for pedestrian and bicycle safety. Generally, the council should support the bill. Recommendation by our Dr. Orland, who's here with me today. The only concern that was brought up is that there are some language, sections A1 and A2 of the bill, that talks about non-safety related issues, more related to staffing, and so that was the one caveat in the bill. Not sure if Dr. Orland has other things to.
Sure, and this is a good bill because it basically requires State Highway Administration to incorporate in all of its designs for any kind of project bike and ped safety improvements. They do a lot of that now, but this is a belt and suspenders kind of thing. The part that sort of seemed odd to me, frankly, was the part of the bill which basically has the state report to the delegation if there are vacancies amongst the staffs that are working on that kind of thing within State Highway, and also what their compensation is, and report on that. I mean, I don't recall that kind of requirement for any other purpose in state government. I could be wrong, but that seemed like an overreach. But that's really more minor. I mean, the basic intent of the bill to require implementation of bike and ped safety projects. I mean, the outcome is really what's important, not the staffing and the compensation of the people working on it.
Thank you for that, Dr. Orland. Councilmember Stewart.
Not this bill, a later one. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I like this bill, though. I would move that we support it.
There you go. Any objection to supporting this legislation? Okay. We support.
Senate Bill 11, motor vehicle speed limits, school zones, and this would alter the radius around certain schools which is within a school zone that may be established, and speed monitoring systems that may be placed in use. Essentially, it's reducing the radius from 0.5 miles to 0.1 miles, and by reducing that, that would severely restrict the area where school zone cameras can be placed. The walk sheds typically for school zones are 0.5 mile radius. And so this bill is not aligned necessarily with the county's Vision Zero goals. I'm going to stop there and give Dr. Orland an opportunity.
Well, you said pretty much all needs to be said. I mean, it does. Sorry about that. It does severely restrict the area around schools. 96% potentially as much of a contraction as that, and the counties can still establish if the maximum is 0.5 miles. You can go with a smaller area if the context calls for that, but bringing it down to 0.1 or lower is, it's just way too small.
Thank you. Councilmember Lutke.
So I'm guessing everybody probably already knows I'm very strongly opposed to this for exactly those reasons. This is completely antithetical to everything we stand for here in Montgomery County, and just bad for school safety across the state. to do this, because as you've mentioned, we do have flexibility currently based on situations that may be appropriate in a particular local area, but you certainly don't want to narrow things down so severely at a time when we're trying to encourage greater walkability and expand sidewalks and, again, deal with our automotive traffic and speed issues. So very strongly opposed to this.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you. I too wanted to oppose this legislation. We talked earlier about the walkers and students who are walking, seniors who are walking, and to restrict the radius for which these traffic monitoring structures could be placed will severely impact our walkers. And so wanted to know if we knew the original justification or reasoning behind the bill sponsor. Do we know?
We do not. The senator is from Baltimore City, so we don't have any background on the bill.
Okay. Well, my position is to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Yeah, I would agree and just move that we oppose.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Second, on the opposition, or third or fourth or fifth, I think at this point, we need infinitely more tools to keep kids safe on roadways. And we have too few. This would reduce what limited tools we currently have. If we're talking about the prior discussion about school buses, this is exponentially more risk because there are exponentially more school buses concentrated at schools, plus walkers, plus all the other activities that are happening at a school. So absolutely oppose and hope that we continue to move forward with more of the Safe Routes to Schools and the other efforts that we've been doing both at the local level and advocating at the state level to do. This does the opposite of that. So I look forward to not only opposing this, but moving forward with the significant efforts we've been trying to do to dramatically increase safety for our students, staff, and teachers and parents near schools and going to and from schools.
Thank you all. I absolutely agree, and we'll just state that achieving our Vision Zero goals requires us to widen our vision, not narrow it. So with that, I hear everyone in opposition. Thank you. Okay.
Our next priorities under HHS, or Health and Human Services, Education and Early Care, specifically House Bill 136, Child Support Enforcement and Occupational and Recreational License, Taxpayer Identification Number. Essentially what this bill would do would alter the requirements for a license authority relating to either approval or denial of a license due to child support rearage. And so currently the application for that licensing requires that an individual use their valid Social Security number. In this case, the bill would allow or permit to disclose or record a TIN number, TIN number, if the applicant doesn't have an SSS number. So essentially the bill would expand the opportunities for individuals. It has been a barrier for women seeking child care license, and this amendment to state law would increase that opportunity. Council staff recommendation here is to support House Bill 136.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
This is the one I wanted to speak to. Thank you very much. I just want to thank the sponsors of this and say this is a huge need. I've seen it firsthand where folks are going for their child care license and cannot do it. It has caused delays in the opening of child care facilities, and this is a huge need in our county, and I just want us to move forward and support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. Ditto to everything said. I just wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Navarro, who really raised a lot of these issues in the prior council. We worked on this issue during the pandemic with some of the challenges facing the child care grants that Councilmember Navarro and I worked on together, and some of the issues related to processing for eligibility. This is a clear need. It's very consistent with how we've handled the earned income tax credit and other related issues, and most importantly, it removes a significant administrative burden to provide desperately needed care for children, which we don't have enough of, and that we are desperately trying to increase opportunities for. So appreciate the sponsors and hope and expect that we will support this bill.
Councilmember Balcom.
Yes, thank you. I fully support this bill. We've been talking, the county's been talking for years about early care and education and the significant shortage of early care workers. But it also goes along with our economic development initiatives. Daycare providers, early care centers are a significant entrepreneurial opportunity for very often our minority women in the community. So for so many reasons, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
Very quickly, also, this is not just about child care providers, but about women who are in the workforce. You need child care to be able to go back and work. So this is also about them. I was going to mention that I know State Delegate Leslie Lopez. She has a bill moving forward that deals with taxpayers' identification numbers in licenses other than child care. I think it just got dropped or is about to, and I'm like highly supportive, especially understanding that there are a lot of immigrants. I'm an immigrant, and I actually had a tax ID number back in the days before I was a citizen. And people who come as a professionals from their native nations and they just want to work, but once they apply for their licenses because they don't have the Social Security number, it's a huge obstacle. So I know she has something moving forward, and I just want you to please track that down, and you have something to say.
I just wanted to, sorry, for the record, Leslie Fry. I just wanted to clarify that this bill as drafted currently applies to all occupational licenses, not just childcare licenses. And Delegate Lopez's bill deals with health occupation
That's
licenses.
right.
And I will
Look into that. Okay?
I was
All right.
talking
Thank
about
you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Topic for another time, but clearly I'm hearing unanimous and enthusiastic support from everybody. Thank you.
Our last bill for review for today fits under our environmental priority, House Bill 169, Public Utilities, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Programs, Energy Performance Targets, and Low-Income Housing. The impetus of the bill is to support energy efficiency for low-income residents. It sets a standard of annual increments up to 1% of energy savings for low-income housing or below 80% of AMI. The potential savings can be used for applicants for weatherization assistance programs, including renters, to help to reduce their bill. Also sets up a task force and includes for GHCA to develop a plan to provide energy efficiency retrofits to all local households by 2031. Council's recommendation here is to support House Bill 169.
I think we're all in support of that. Equity in our environmental protection, right? Okay. And there we have it.
I had a
Bravo, everybody.
Oh, I had a quick question, Mr.
Sure.
President.
Councilmember Sales.
Yes, so, Councilmember, Mr. Vice President and I, Friedson, are on the Legislative Committee. I know that there are many more bills that are reviewed during those meetings, and so I'm just curious if this body gets to review any of those meetings to elicit opinions from this body.
So I'll take that one, Councilmember Sales. Appreciate you asking it, and that is a conversation for ongoing conversation that we have here in the body. Just before this body was constituted and seated, the previous council set some priorities for what we want to do here and how we achieve that support with our colleagues in Annapolis. And staff have looked at those priorities and pulled out the pieces of legislation that match those priorities. If there are bills that colleagues would like to address, please, I welcome a conversation so that we can figure out how we tackle some of the local bills that have the most direct impacts on us as county government and other bills that might affect us as Maryland residents. And I think that's the balance that we're trying to achieve here. But I appreciate you raising that. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. We're adjourned.